when I talk about awakening or consciousness, it really has to do with an acceptance of what is, but especially if it's unpleasant, or if there's a feeling of vulnerability, or you mentioned stress, whatever that might be, the way out of it is to allow it, and that stress is a resistance of what is, and so it comes up, and when stress is there, the way out of it is not to resist it, because then that would add to the stress. So it's the process is to, I mean, I could say a process, but it's really like in the moment. A process implies time. So yeah, over time there's a process, but basically right now, listening, paying attention, and feeling what's going on. And like I said, I'm experiencing a certain, sense of noise that might have to do with the broadcast medium and the computer and so on. And the thing is, that's neither good nor bad, really. It's just what it is, and it's a bit unpleasant, maybe. And I think it's a good example because we have a habit of mentally resisting things that are unpleasant.
Mm-hmm.
And as we go through our day, we're taught, I mean, I was taught this, and I see it, that that we need to resist things, and we need to fight it.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be. It's a sense people say, be strong. Make your way in the world, and there is wisdom in that to a point. But then when it becomes stressful, we're not really taught, or we weren't taught, most of us, when we were young, how to deal with things that are unpleasant that we can't get rid of. So it could be a noisy environment that we're trapped in, or we can't get away from, like we live in a big city, and it's noisy. Or we're in a job that that's part of our career path, and it's something that we're involved in, and we can't really just leave, or we feel that we can't, and it's really unpleasant. There might be unpleasant people. I mean, haven't we all worked with unpleasant people? It's just part of life, and that the way out of it is to notice that there's a part of us that judges, and that's what I would call the mind. We have this habit of judging, and judging is saying that something is wrong, or that it shouldn't be what it is, or it's bad, or something like that. And the fact is, nothing's really truly wrong or bad. Things are either healthy or unhealthy. If there's an act of violence going on, or something, an atrocity, and you witness this, whether it's in person or on TV, or you read about it in the newspaper, or someone's taking advantage of someone, those things are dysfunctional and they're unhealthy, and the way to help that situation is not to judge it and say that shouldn't be happening, because that's that mental habit I'm talking about, and it shuts down our natural intelligence in a way, and we're less helpful because we're at odds with it. We're fearful and confused and stressed and frustrated, angry, and so on, and instead of being calm and in some sense dispassionate, just like maybe a trained ER physician would deal with a trauma, is different from the way most people would, because an ER physician would be trained to be utterly focused and calm and just take care of the situation. And part of that is just accepting that the situation is what it is, just being with it, not thinking about it. Noticing if judgments arise, like, oh, the thought arises, this is terrible, this is wrong, this shouldn't be happening. That's going to happen. We notice that thought, and I'll make a gesture here. It's like the thought arises, and we're watching, we're just aware of it. And if we don't judge it, it passes. Sometimes I talk about snowflakes, and actually snowflakes fall down, so I could do this. But basically, thoughts rise and fall, they pass within our awareness, and we're taught to judge things as right or wrong, good and bad, and it makes us confused and scared. Now, some people might disagree with this and say that some things are wrong. Some things are truly horrible. They're really, difficult to talk about, painful and damaging. But the fact is, if we're going to be there, if we're going to contribute to world peace, or just peace anywhere, that we need to be peaceful. And if we're mentally at odds, if we're judging a situation that we can't control, it creates a separation and a certain kind of anxiety and stress that reduces our ability to do something about it. It's calm effectiveness, not icy or detached or unfeeling, but, and that leads me into compassion. I know that's what we had talked about this and what we wanted to have this conversation be about. And I would say that the first step in a compassionate attitude is to practice an awareness that doesn't judge, and to notice the judgments that do arise, that inevitably do, whether they're coming from someone else or coming just arising within you, and just to notice those and to see that they may be dysfunctional, but they're not ultimately bad or wrong. Those judgments don't really apply. They don't help. They might be dysfunctional, like a fearful thought is not a functional thought, but it is what it is. So if I'm an emergency room physician and they wheel someone in and some horrible violence has happened and someone's body is damaged in a way that's difficult for most people to witness or contemplate, a trained physician, an ER physician, surgeon, must be calm, must be present and actually very caring. It's a form of caring that, and it isn't sentimental. I mean, you wouldn't say that think about the best surgeons, there's no time for sentiment. There's a profound caring that takes action based on wisdom and gets it done, and then maybe later there's time for more emotion. But I would say that that's kind of what we're being called to do, I think, is to be less judgmental. It doesn't mean that we don't act. We don't become doormats. We become powerfully effective, much more so than if we were locked into a judgmental framework. If you're ever around people who you might think of as judgmental, they're usually just sitting around complaining about things and not doing something about it. And built into that structure of judging and complaining is actually part of what's, you might say, is wrong with the world. I mean, it's ironic that I said what's wrong with the world. I just said that, that's a judgment.
Nothing's really wrong.
So, yeah, well, I mean, yeah, on a certain level, it's like, yeah, it's wrong. But, I mean, when you really get down to it, it's dysfunctional. And it's not, see, the word wrong implies that dysfunction shouldn't be happening now. Like war's going on. Oh, that's wrong, that's bad. It's a mental habit that we have. Or someone's practicing a lifestyle that's not hurting someone, and we we judge it like, oh, there ought to be a law, like it's wrong, it's bad. It's just a habit that we're brought up with. And the fact is, behaviors are either healthy or unhealthy, functional or dysfunctional. And that doesn't require stress, that assessment. And it's profoundly caring because it doesn't judge. We all really, I think, want someone to come along who loves us enough that doesn't judge us. They see our dysfunction, whatever it might be, and just doesn't judge us for it, doesn't say that we're bad or wrong, just says, okay, well, would you like some help with this? Or maybe you just need a hug or something. But basically, it's based in non-judgmental awareness. It feels really good. I mean, we all know that, a really loving, like maybe our grandmother, or it could be a family member, it could be someone else who just loved us and accepted us as we were, and yet in some way encouraged us to be better people. That's kind of what I'm getting at. But we have to do it with ourselves. That's the challenge.